Hello, this is Spartan Commander, and this is the 113th Rome Total War Brotherhood game that I've put onto YouTube. The team I'm in today consists of Brotherhood member Conan, the co-founder of the Brotherhood, all the way back in January 2005. Then we have Brotherhood member Sacred. He's called himself Cataclysm, but it actually is Brotherhood member Sacred, and he has bought the Rome Julio faction. And then myself, Spartan Commander, who has bought the Rome Brutio faction. So there's our team there. I think all three of us have been playing Rome Total War since it first came out in September 2004, but we don't play that much these days, so we might have lost our edge as a team. We just have to wait and see. The other team is really great. At this early stage of the battle, I thought we'd look at Conan's army. Very often Conan builds a purpose-built custom army for whoever he's fighting. If you notice here, he's got 4 archers and he's got a cavalry general. Up to about, say, 5 or 6 years ago, we always used to bring cavalry generals, but now, of course, we use infantry generals. Seeing a cavalry general is quite old school these days. As you can see, he's got 5 cavalry. But if you count, he's only got 10 infantry, and that's an unusually small amount of infantry to bring to a 31k battlefield. But with his archers and his cavalry and infantry, he's built this army specifically for the factions that we're facing. When you see the factions that we're up against, you'll understand why he's actually bought those 4 archers and only the amount of infantry. And here is the other team. We have Greeks Cleomenes, who's called himself Lake Damon, and he has bought the Macedon faction. Then we have TAOW Annibal Barker, who has bought the Greek Cities faction. And then we have Greeks member Leonidas. I think he is the leader, and I think he's the founder of the Greek clan there. As you can see, he's bought the Seleucid faction there. And having a closer look at his army, I believe that he's got Levy pikemen as a pilot shield unit on the front, and then you move on to the silver shield pikemen. Both the Levy pikemen and the silver shield pikemen have got extremely long pikes that obviously the enemy have to fight through to get down to the infantry. You'll notice also in his army he has not bought chariots. As you might have seen in other battle videos of mine, chariots are very much a two-edged sword, double-edged sword, because if they run amok, they can kill friend and foe alike. So a lot of people don't bring chariots. They have got the fear factor, the scare factor that they've got, but they do run amok and can cause damage to both teams. Instead of that, he's bought the tank cataphract tank cavalry. If you look at the armour on the horse and man alike, you can see they really were the tanks of the ancient world. Really tough cavalry. Great charge and very difficult to kill. So there's Leonidas' Seleucid army. It looks pretty tough to me. And here is the Spartan army. I believe he's got 14 Spartan units. They've all got 2 hit points each. Excellent morale and really good specs. So the Spartans are really tough units. Did you know a bit of Spartan history here? Did you know that Spartan boys were taken from their mother at the age of 7, and then they were intensively trained with iron discipline for 14 years until they were 21, when they were then allowed to go into battle? Some of you might know that in 480 BC, Xerxes led a Persian army of maybe 1 million men into Greece with the intention of actually invading the whole of Greece. At the time, Sparta had a religious ceremony going on, and the Spartan army was not allowed to fight. So the King Leonidas took his 300 bodyguard to a place called Thermopylae. And this is a narrow pass in the mountains that the Persian army would have to go through to get to the rest of Greece. And Leonidas knew this, so he took his 300 bodyguard there. And in the narrow pass, it doesn't matter that Xerxes may have had 1 million men, the numbers counted for nothing in that narrow pass, and the Spartans held for days. In the end, Xerxes got angry and even sent in his elite immortal infantry, but they fared no better than the ordinary infantry. In that narrow pass, they just could not get past those Spartans. Then a local man, in exchange for gold and women, told Xerxes about an old, forgotten, overgrown goat track that led over the mountains and would come out behind the Spartans' position. So straight away Xerxes sent 10,000 of his elite immortal troops over that goat track, and they came out behind Leonidas' position. Leonidas, seeing that his position was untenable, is said to have put his Spartans into a wedge formation with him at the leading edge. They advanced into the Persian hordes and they cut a deep swathe into their ranks. Eventually Leonidas was killed, and then a mini battle within that battle started as the Persians tried to grab his body and the Spartans stopped them. Eventually a few Spartans managed to fight their way onto a small hillock, where Xerxes then surrounded this hillock and sent a representative and said to them, if you hand over Leonidas' body, you can go free. The Spartans of course said no. This annoyed Xerxes, and he said, I will waste no more men on these Spartans, and he brought his thousands of archers forward. And it is said that the arrows were so numerous that they blocked out the sun, and the Spartans really did fight in the shade. As the last Spartan fell, the 300 passed into legend, and I'm sure that story will be told forevermore. That's how tough the Spartans are, and it is reflected in RTW. At this early stage of the battle, you can see on our right flank that Conan is sending his cavalry gen forward to try and get those Macedon archers. But as you can see, the Macedon general is very alert and is advancing with his pikemen now towards Conan's position. If you notice that Conan's 4 archers now are firing volley after volley into those Macedon pikemen. As you might know, pikemen are very susceptible to arrow damage and can be killed quite a lot by them. As you can see here, the Macedon general is sending his cavalry into Conan's archers, but you can see that Conan is moving his infantry forward to support those archers now. If you notice, the Macedon general is attacking with his pikemen here, because obviously what he's thinking is he's not going to stand around to let his pikemen be killed by those archers. So what he's thinking is he's going to attack. If you notice that Conan's cavalry have attacked the Cretan archers and have routed them. So now, as I see, the Macedon pikemen are now engaged with Conan's infantry now. Conan's archers will still be firing loads of arrows into the Macedonians, and as I said, the pikemen for both Seleucid and Macedon and Pontus are very susceptible to arrow fire and will be suffering a great deal of casualties from Conan's 4 archer units. There's a close-up of a bit of the fighting there between the pikemen and Conan's infantry. If you notice that Sacred's Julii army is racing over to help Conan here, I think possibly the intention here is to try and take out the Macedon army as quick as they can. That's why Conan was so aggressive, and Sacred's rushing over there as fast as he can. I'm just pausing the game a second to take stock of the situation. As you can see here, the Seleucid tank cavalry have moved over and are facing Conan's cavalry and archers there. Obviously they would attack the archers if Conan's cavalry wasn't there. Do you notice that Conan's got 3 units of infantry there? That's a very good place to put them. He can either attack the Macedon infantry, or they can help against the Cataphract cavalry if they attack. So that's a good position to put those infantry. Meanwhile, the rest of his infantry are now engaged with the Macedon pikemen. I would guess that all these Urbans would have thrown their pilers in now, so the Macedons would have suffered a lot of casualties from the pilers. As you can see, Sacred Armies is just arriving there, and I was right over on the left flank, and as you see, I'm running over as fast as I can with both my cavalry and infantry to support Sacred and Conan. As you can see at the moment, the Macedon army appears to be quite not isolated as such because they've got cavalry support, but they're certainly a little bit isolated from their infantry allies. As you can see, Conan's using those 3 units he put there to attack the flank of those Macedon infantry there. So as I say, he had the option of leaving them to help with the Cataphract cavalry attack or charging to the Macedon infantry there. As you can see, my Brutii army's just arrived, and I'm facing the Greek cities army. As you can see, Sacred's army is also engaging the Macedon army at the same time, so there's a heck of a lot of Roman troops fighting those Macedon infantry at the moment. Just going to pause the game here to show you the general overview of what's actually happening, and then I'm going to ask you a question afterwards. So please have a look at where all the units are, because the question will relate to what's going to happen next. As you can see here, my allies have put an urban unit in guard mode there in anticipation of the Cataphract cavalry charging in. And if you see there that there's a lot of Roman units there are up against the fighting the Macedon pikemen head on at the moment, and the Greek cities are over on the left, and the Seleucid pikemen are just arriving. So that's the general overview of the battle so far. Now, the question I'd like to ask you is that if you were in charge of my 6 fresh cavalry units, what would you do with them? Would you like to take them around the flank, get behind the pikemen with that cavalry, maybe try and take out those archers? Or would you take them to the other flank to maybe support your allies against that potential Cataphract cavalry attack coming in? Maybe I could put them there to support against that cavalry hit, or take them even wider round to threaten the flank of maybe the pikemen. What do you think you would do if you were in charge of those 6 cavalry units there? Yes, interesting question. Let's see what happens. As you can see here, the Seleucid tank Cataphract cavalry are charging in, and they hit there with a hell of a bang. If you notice, my Brutii cavalry, I'm charging across. Now if you notice, the Macedon pikemen are weakened. They're all in combat with our allies' troops there, and I'm going to try a charge of my cavalry, hoping the shock of the charge of the cavalry will rout some of those Macedon pikemen, because Macedon's morale is not very good. So if I'm hitting with my cavalry, I'm hoping I'm going to rout some of the Macedon units. As you can see, some of the Macedon units are starting to rout already there. If you notice that the Seleucid cavalry have charged in the right and have been repelled by my allies' cavalry and infantry there. But if you notice that my cavalry is still there, and if you notice there must be 4 or 5 of those Macedon units have now routed. Obviously you don't charge cavalry into Pike's units all the time, but there I could see their Pike units were weakened. I know their morale is low, and I thought the charge from the cavalry would just rout some of the units, and it seemed to work. Here you can see the enemy Macedon cavalry charging into the back of my Julii allies infantry there. I see my allies sending in cavalry to counter that Macedon cavalry. As you can see, the Cataphract tank cavalry are moved out to the right. They may well charge in again. And there you go, you can see them charging into my allies' infantry there. But like I said, the Seleucid and the Macedon morale is not very good. So, and there you go, you can see some of the Seleucid units starting to rout already. As they just literally come around the corner, attacked a Julii unit, and now they've started to rout. So, it just goes to show how low their morale is there. But as you see, the Seleucid Pike army is basically intact. There's absolutely loads of 120 man units in those Pike units, the same as the Macedon Pike units, 120 men per unit, so that's a lot of men. Meanwhile, over on our left flank here, you can see that I'm fighting the Greek cities, the Spartans. As you might know, the Spartans have got 2 hit points, excellent morale, and are extremely difficult to kill. Their specifications are really high, and used properly they can be battle winning troops, and are extremely tough. If you notice that the Greek cities archers have been firing arrows into our armies all the time here, so if we could maybe take those archers out, that would help us as well. As you can see, my Brutii cavalry are charging into the Greek cities archers there, with a view to try and kill and rout as many as I can to stop them firing their arrows into our armies. You see, that's a big wad, if you like, of Seleucid pikemen advancing forward there onto our Julii ally. If you notice that the Greek city unit, the Spartan units, are actually, a lot of them aren't engaged, so they're fresh. So you think about that, 2 hit points, all the great specifications, and they're fresh pikemen as well. So they're going to be, it's going to take a lot of stopping, they will do, I think. If you notice, we're throwing pilers into the Spartans, but because of their 2 hit points and their defense, they tend to not suffer as many casualties as a lot of units do against when they get hit by by pilers. You see, there's a big bunch of dead Spartans there that have obviously been hit by a lot of pilers. So as you can see, we're trying to attack the front and the side, the flank and the rear of Spartan units if we can. As you know, Pike units' weak spots are the flanks and the rear. But with Spartans, even if you attack the flank or the rear, very often they just carry on fighting. That's how good they are in this game. As you can see, some of our Julii allies starting to rout there. If you notice that the Seleucid general has put a pike unit facing to the rear, that's to protect obviously his fighting troops at the front. The last thing he wants is cavalry or infantry getting in behind his fighting pike units. So he's put a line of Seleucid pikemen there to protect the rear of his of the main battle line there. If you notice that I'm attacking with my Brutii infantry, and if you notice that my allies at Julii cavalry have charged in there as well. I think the thought was there that the Seleucid morale is so low that maybe with that cavalry charge and our infantry hit, that would rout that pike unit, but it didn't actually do it at that time. The thing is, when you're fighting pike armies, manoeuvrability, moving your forces around quickly to try and hit them in the side and flank is extremely important. Can you see my Brutii cavalry are charging in now, as well as I've got some infantry units going as well. I'm hoping to rout some of those pike units now. And what I'd like to do is take my cavalry forward and go into the back of some of those fighting pike units to try and rout some of them, as well as my allies Julii cavalry charging. Can you see the Seleucid units starting to rout there? That's because their morale so low, but I bet the Greek cities still hold. Even if they get hit in the rear, they'll probably still hold there. You notice I'm pulling my cavalry back now because the Greek cities generals turned some pikes backwards, but I'm charging in some more of my infantry, as I say, with a view to try and attack them at the rear and the flank. Attack them head on just to hold them in the position while I can get units round to the flank and the rear. If you notice here, there's a couple of isolated Greek city units fighting. I'm going to charge my cavalry into the rear of them, hoping that the shock of the cavalry hit will rout them, because they were already very battle damaged. And bang, as that cavalry hits in, you can see the Greek city units and the Seleucid unit that was there starting to rout. So that was a good cavalry charge. Now that infantry that were fighting those units, I may well be able to move over to help us fight the other pike units there. Just going to pause the games for a second for us to take stock of the situation. As you can see, my Brutii general is fighting forward, and also he's got a Spartan unit coming in behind him as well. Obviously they know the value of, if they can kill my general, it would lower the morale of my troops. So he's trying to kill my general from attacking from the front and the rear. Over here on the left you can see that we've just taken out those couple of Spartan units and are now trying to face that other Spartan unit there. At the rear you can see both my Julii ally and myself are attacking at the rear. Maybe if we could kill that Greek city's general, that would help with the lowering the morale of the Greeks, but their morale is so high anyway, I don't think killing the general would really kind of affect them that as much as it would other factions. I've got a couple of I've got a few very battle damaged cavalry units left, but attacking the Greek cities is so difficult with battle damaged cavalry units, because as I said before, very often even if they get hit in the rear by cavalry, they still carry on fighting, as you might see in a second here. Meanwhile, over on our right you can see they're still fighting there. There you go, can you see that isolated Greek city faction? Bang! I charge in my battle damaged cavalry units. Now that would rout most other Pike faction units, but not the Greek cities. It still carries on fighting. That's why even if you can hit them in the rear with cavalry, they still carry on fighting. That's how good their specifications are on this game. What's quite worrying is there's a big bunch of Spartans there in the centre moving over to the left, and that would take a heck of a lot of stopping. That big bunch there is extremely dangerous, and like just looking at the forces we've got left, I just can't see how we're going to be able to stop those Spartans there. If you notice that both Conan and I think Sacred are firing, have still got an archer unit left each, and they're firing fire arrows into the Spartans. Obviously, as you know, fire arrows lower morale as well as causing casualties. As you can see here, I'm just going to charge my cavalry into the rear and flank of those Pike units in the hope of trying to cause some more casualties. But I was hoping to maybe rout that Seleucid unit there, but unfortunately that didn't work. As you can see, the fire arrows are still firing into the Spartans there, but looking at how much infantry we've got left, maybe things are not looking that good for our team here. And looking at the situation at the moment, I would think it'd only be a matter of time before my remaining Brutii units can hold there, with the Spartans moving forward as they are. As you can see, the fire arrows are still hitting the Spartans. I've just got a few cavalry left that I'm just charging in, just to try and cause the last few casualties that I can. And I think it's just my my general left, and he's just been killed there. So that was a really close. That was a great battle to be in there. If you're looking at the dead here, you can see how intense this 3v3 was. If you notice, there's a big pile of cataphract Seleucid cavalry there on this right flank. And if you look at all the dead all the way along the battle line there, you can see how intense the fighting was, and it just bears testament to how tough the fighting was there. First thing I'd like to say is really well played to everybody in the game. I thought the other team played extremely well. New players watching this, to be a good Pike general, you need to be really good with your micromanagement of units. And I noticed that those three, through their experience of using Pike units, were very good at that. I'd like to say really well played to Sacred and Conan. I thought they showed great skill, great attacking tactics, and really well played to both of them. It was a great game to be in. Can you see the kills that Conan got there? Highest kills in the game. And it just goes to show to new players that even if you get the highest kills in the game, you don't necessarily win. And if you look at the ratio of kills between our two armies, you see really that's why it was only a close defeat. So once again, win or lose, it was a great battle to be in. It's Spartan Commander saying, hope you enjoyed the battle. Hope you like the history about the Spartans, and look forward to seeing you soon. And bye for now.